everyone! Happy Wednesday and welcome to Scoping Out, the Periscope that I do every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time. And I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that you've joined and figured out how to follow your curiosity. We've been working on some deep things lately, haven't we? We've really been, what's interesting is they're not deep, they're not hard, they're not difficult. They're just these tiny little nuances that give you permission to do what you wanted to do in the first place, permission to follow those instincts. So I am excited to share with you a story today. Excited and terrified a little bit because it's really close to home, and I hope it's not too much information, but this is life. This is the stuff that we go through. And the promise that I've made in doing these scopes is to show you real practical application for the tools that I use and what they really mean in everyone's life, including the life of the person who developed them. So before I tell you my story, I got to introduce myself for those of you who are new. My name's Triffany, just like Tiffany with an R. I'm a certified professional life coach, and I help strong, powerful women who have all the trappings of success add that happiness piece. A friend of mine and I came up with a phrase the other day where guilt is the problem, love is the answer. I kind of love that. So that's what I do, and you can see how this might apply to my own life. And this is why it's so important for me to come in authenticity to you here today, and we're talking about forgiveness, and not in the typical way. You'll find out here in just a second. So I'm going to share this story with you. I'm really scared. So I am almost 4 years divorced. And in the time that I've been divorced, I've really taken such a specific focus on my kids, my business, healthy grieving for all of us, stepping forward, being really present to the needs that we had as we were healing after the divorce. As a result, I really wasn't all that interested in dating. Wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even, not even on my radar. Didn't want to at all. Until it got to the point that I actually had some resistance to it. I started developing this story in my head about how relationships aren't worth it, and relationships, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about what that means when your story comes up and how that's resistance in your life, and that's pushback in your life that really ends up holding you back, because what we resist persists, right? So, interestingly enough, one of the things I started to notice recently, I have had some intuitive hits from some subconscious work that I do. A lot of it came to me through my dreams. I've talked to you about dream analysis before. I promise I will do a video about dream analysis and teach you how to do this. It's just I've been super busy with other stuff. But at any rate, clearly got the message that I was supposed to stretch myself in that way and get back out there, even though everything in my conscious thinking limited mind was telling me, no, dating sucks, relationships are awful. And one of the things that I started to notice as I put myself out there was that there was still this very sort of ever-present request and need and desire by the general public for sex. And of course, right? We're physical beings. Sex is it's part of who we are, right? So, thank you for the support, because like I said, this is terrifying. And what I've noticed in myself is I was like, yay sex. Yes, yay sex. It is part of who we are. It is part of what it means to be human. I talk about I think about myself as like this human experiment. And I will often say the human experience. And sex and physical joy is very much a part of that. It's no different than, savory foods and fresh air and feeling soft cottons on your skin. It is an important part of this human experience. And yet I clearly was stuck in my story because, it actually would trigger me. I'd be like, oh, that's all I want. Blah, blah, blah. I'd go into this place in my head that was unhealthy and not good. And I started to not only have a story about what was out in the world, but I started to create this story about myself, because I do have an appreciation for sex, and I used to have this massive sex drive. So I'm like, what the hell happened to that, right? I'm a woman, flesh and blood. What the hell happened that this piece of me just turned off? And I started to hear myself say things when I was talking to friends and my coaches and things, where I'd say, I'm afraid I'm broken. I'm afraid there's something wrong with me. And it took me a little while to hear myself say this. It's good I verbalized. It was good that I said this out loud. But it took me a while to even realize that I had created this secondary story. Not only were relationships hard and not worth the effort, and I have a whole story about men. I know it's not healthy. I'm doing my work. But now I had this story about myself too, right? I'm glad this resonates because I'm scared. Can you see me flushing? I'm like, oh, I'm scared. So at any rate, this weird thing happened last week and it was this totally platonic situation. There was absolutely no reason that this should have in any concrete, observable way triggered in me this thing that I thought was broken and lost, but it did. And I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember feeling this way. Oh my gosh, I'm not broken. This is back as a part of me. And I started calling my friends and my coach. I'm not broken. Everything's good. This is good. And it was the weirdest thing because it was all just a flood of hormones. It wasn't even I wasn't in front of anybody. It was a situation it was an invitation from someone that I haven't seen in years, who we were just friends. Like there was nothing at all in it that should have triggered this in me, but it did. So in processing this with my friends and my coaches, the question came up. I said, you know, what's really interesting about this whole situation is that I had very recently said, okay, well, Triffany, your job is to love yourself. Even if you are broken, even if this is a piece of you that is not coming back ever and ever again, your job is to love yourself, because the only way you can bring your true work to the world, your true self to the world, is to fall in love with yourself in every aspect, even the parts that seem broken. And I had actually started to actively and consciously grieve that piece of me, that it had, as though it had died, as though it had just gone somewhere and wasn't coming back. And it wasn't, as soon as I did that, and it was as soon as I made that conscious decision, this whole situation happened that brought this back into my awareness. The reason I say that, and the reason why I called today's Periscope forgiveness, remember, if you've been coming to this, forgiveness isn't saying, we tend to think of forgiveness in terms of when we've been wronged, and it's our job to, you know, say, oh, it's okay, let it go. And from the limited mind, from the thinking mind. And I've long said that forgiveness isn't even about that. Forgiveness is about identifying where you're putting your energy. If you're putting your energy into that hurt, then your task is to bring that energy back. Well, this isn't where anybody's done me a wrong except myself, right? This was my story. So forgiveness really is about bringing that energy back. And in making the choice to consciously grieve this piece of myself that I thought I was missing, that was my opportunity at that point to bring back the energy from my hurtful story and find a way to love myself, even though I was sad that apparently I had been broken, was the word I kept using. I hope I'm clarifying this well enough, because what I want you to take away from this, what I want you to understand, is there's a big difference between wanting something. Right? I wanted my full womanhood. I wanted sexuality to be a part of my womanhood. I wanted that for myself. That is very, very different from being afraid that it won't be there. Do you understand? And what we resist persists. So if I had stayed in that afraid place, if I had gone to the doctor and sought hormone therapy, if I had continued to talk about myself as though I was broken and just terrified this wasn't coming back, I would actually potentially, not even potentially, I'm pretty certain, would have perpetuated the issue that I was facing, rather than taking the energy back from that hurtful story. And then, as if by magic, and I'm not even joking, I had on Monday made the conscious choice that I was going to go. I call it the grief plan. It's in my conscious transitions course. You really want to go check this out. What I put out there in terms of, good, I'm glad you're going to check it out, because I think you'll really get a lot out of it. What I put out there for others, I do kind of, more by second nature once I can catch myself. So Monday, I was like, okay, you're going to consciously grieve this, go use your own tools. Tuesday, I got this email, and it just brought into sharp relief the fact that, yes, what we resist persists, number one, right? And number two, that, oh, thank I'm glad you think my tools are amazing. And they're simple, right? The wonderful thing about this stuff is that it's these simple little mind shifts, and they just pile on each other and pile on each other until you go, oh, what is this magic that is occurring in my life? I mean, look at me, I'm doing the same thing. What is this magic that is occurring in my life? This was really good reminder. This is the second point. The reminder here is to be willing to let go. Be willing to let go your ego, your story, your have-tos, your fears. And every single time you do that, magic happens. Every single time. So that thing you want, the trick to getting it is not wanting it. Well, is not fearing that you won't have it, right? That's that forgiveness piece, is taking the energy back from that fearful story. I hope that if that's not making sense, like I said, send comments, let me know. This is for you and I to grow together. So I want to make sure that this is really coming across and being perfectly clear. So this is my big aha, my big thing, and my really big vulnerable place right now, because it hits really close to home, and I'm still even processing what this even means for me. But I couldn't not share the magic of this forgiveness piece, the magic of having a tool, a way to take back those energies so you can let your life unfold instead of just trying to manhandle it all the time. There is a reason these things happen, and they all happen so that we get this practice at forgiveness. They all happen so we get this practice at self-love, at self-care, at patience. I know I say that every week, but I cannot say it enough. And my life is no exception, right? So one last parting shot before I go, but I want to give you the calendar of events. Today, 9 a.m. If you're a Fail to Win student, we've got a great class today at 9 o'clock, right just here in a few minutes, Mountain Time. Also today at 11 o'clock, if you are a conscious transition student, that's the course I mentioned that has the grief plan in it, a whole bunch of stuff. It's a home course in grief and growth if you are interested, and it walks you through this grieving process and then the growth process that comes after that healing so that you can know what to do with it after that. We have office hours today. That's where you bring your questions about the tools and how to use them if you've tried them on and have questions about applying them. That's what the office hours are for. And then, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong part. Today is group coaching. Lovely members. We have our group coaching today at 11. Next week is conscious transitions office hours at 11. This Saturday, I'm teaching that grief plan actually at the divorce workshop in Cherry Creek. You can look that up at divorceworkshop.com. I'll put links up here on the recording. And then, of course, next week we have this scoping out, another Fail to Win, the office hours. But the 18th, the Thursday, is the Inside Scoop. So this is me bringing my life to bear and teaching you the tools through just my personal life experiences. But next Thursday is your opportunity. So go right here. I'm going to put a little card up here. Watch that pop out. It's going to tell you to go send a question. Send a question to me so that I can help you answer some of the things that are coming up in your life as you're trying on some of these concepts and tools and things. So my one last parting shot here is, you know, I touched on it, but it was almost cursory, and it is this idea of self-love. It is this idea of self-care. Remember, my main goal when I started talking about myself is broken. That's a hurtful thought. And of course, I'm thankful for that thought because it brought me to the realization that I could let it go. That was my practice at forgiveness. And I'm thankful for the thought because it is, it helps me understand more about myself and the role my sexuality plays as a woman, right? So there are gifts in that thought, and it's time to let it go. And that whole reason I chose to let it go was the idea that I wanted to love myself right where I am. I cannot ever expect love from someone else right where I am if I'm incapable of loving myself right where I am. So that is our homework this week. That is what we're working on. You, me, self-care, self-love, taking energy back from hurtful stories. I love when you said that guilt is the problem, love is the answer. That hits home. Thank you. I'm so glad. Yay. It does, doesn't it? Because we feel guilty about everything, about being too much of a mom, not enough of an employee. You know, like we have all of these things in our head, and really what it comes down to is the way that we prioritize ourselves in alignment with everything else we do. Everything else comes first: the story, the men, the dating, the job, the kids, right? And then we feel bad if we need to refuel. We feel bad if we want to follow our curiosity, like we've talked about before on these scopes, because we don't value our path, where the guilt would just dissolve if we could come to this self-love, if we could come to this place of understanding and caring and cherishing ourselves. Oh, the kids are a big one. Mom guilt is huge. I know. So good. I'm glad this hit home with you guys. I'm glad this resonated with you. I'm so insanely glad that you're here and that you've interacted with me and helped me out in creating some great content. And I really want to hear from you. I want to hear how this goes as you start to think about some of these ideas and these tools. I want you to go to this Conscious Transitions course and get these tools for yourself. If you can get to the point where you can consciously grieve the things that are hurting you, you can let those go. And then what you actually wanted just magically arrives. Who doesn't want that kind of magic, right? So go check those things out. Come back here next week, both Wednesday and Thursday, scoping out on Wednesday. The Inside Scope is time for your questions. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Go create a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.